how did I get started in all of this? Well, as a youth, my favorite television show was In Search of with Leonard Nimoy. And this is where I first saw the Patterson-Gimlin film. Now, I watched this in sheer amazement as Patty walked along the creek bank, looking back over her shoulder before she disappeared into the woods. My stepfather snorted, "It's a man in a suit," and he got up and left the room. I kind of pondered the question for a while. I discussed it with my friends at school who had also seen this show, but, like any other 10-year-old, my mind quickly changed gears and kind of went on to other things. I've always had a fascination with cryptids, UFOs, ghosts, ESP, anything that's kind of outside the accepted scientific parameters. I've had numerous encounters with ghosts, UFOs, psychic phenomena. This was all just very real to me. Bigfoot, however, was more of a passing interest. I read a few books, watched the documentary programs with interest, but it was a passive interest, and I didn't give it much thought one way or another past the topic of the moment. I never disbelieved, yet I was never really an ardent believer in it either. I hadn't seen enough to convince me. But that was all about to change dramatically. I'd been retired for about 2 years, and I was going through a divorce and looking to stretch my retirement dollars a little bit. I decided to find some place other than Texas with a decent cost of living because Austin, Texas is crazy. So, after a little Googling and some internet searches, I decided to come to West Virginia. A few months settling into my new house, I was anxious to get out and explore my home state, my new home state. I was taking a lot of road trips, going to different memorials and monuments and historical sites, things like that. But the big thing is I love nature. I love wildlife. State and national parks are just the places I love to be. I don't know, it's like a passion, because in times of really high stress in my life, my best relief is to take a nice long nature bath, get out in the woods, do some hiking, be around nature. I'm an avid nature and wildlife photographer. It's one of my favorite things in the world to do. So, hiking in the woods and photographing, it brings me back to life. It recharges my batteries. Now, I'm not a hunter and I don't do a whole lot of fishing. Basically, the only shooting I do is with a camera. But a friend of mine who I had met when I first moved here to West Virginia suggested a state recreation area that wasn't too far from my house. He said, "Oh, they have all kinds of nice hiking trails out there." And they do. It was kind of an unseasonably warm November day, and I decided to pack up some gear and drive on out there. The place was just not so far from my house. It was a quarter-mile loop trail, is what I had found. And it was just perfect for an afternoon hike. Now, I'm going along the hiking trail, and I'm passing a small stream that kind of poured into a larger pond, and down in there is this absolutely beautiful mallard duck. I had to get a picture of it. So I left the trail and I hiked down the hill towards the bank of the water line, and I spent about 20 minutes running through there, up and down and around and here and there, trying to get a decent picture of this duck. And any wildlife photographer will tell you you have to shoot 20 pictures to really get one good one. Well, I was kind of satisfied that I had a good picture, so I went back up to the main trail. When I got to the main trail and I'm walking along again, all of a sudden it was like the forest went dead. eerily silent. The silence was deafening. No birds, no crickets, no bullfrogs, nothing. And have you ever had that feeling like you're being watched? Because the hair on the back then I had hair. The hair on the back of my neck stood straight up. And I stopped in my tracks and took a deep breath, telling myself, okay, this is just my imagination, just stop it. And I took a few more steps, and I looked off, just slightly off the trail, and there was these two wooden structures. I can just best describe them as looking like igloos made out of sticks, and I wanted to get a closer look. I mean, who would have made these? Sticks and vines, leaves and branches, all very intricately wove together. And they stood alone off the trail. I mean, looking around that area, there was no sign of a campfire. There was no sign that anybody had been picnicking there. Besides, it's a state area. It's a day use area is what it is. It's day use only. So there's no hunting allowed in there. There's no camping allowed in there. Well, the forest was still pretty silent, but there's a little bit of rustling in the bushes behind me. That was the only sound I heard, movement in the bushes behind me. Although I would hear this and I'd turn and look, I didn't see anything. I saw the branches and bushes actually moving, but I didn't see what was moving them. So this whole thing was just, I don't know, starting to get a little creepy. I decided I needed to get some pictures of these things, possibly show them to somebody who knows more than I do and could maybe explain this to me. So I knelt down and I opened up my camera bag. I still had my big telephoto lens on the camera, and I needed to change it to a smaller picture so I could get some close-up shots. I thought maybe I can take a peek inside these things and see if I can find any hairs or anything like that. I mean, these were so intricately woven and put together. Obviously it wasn't a deer that did that, it wasn't a bear, it wasn't a squirrel. So I'm switching my lens and I hear some more ruttling in the bushes. Just kind of take a look around, and as I'm starting to switch out the camera lens, I heard 3 distinct knocks, as if somebody took a baseball bat and hit a tree with it. Okay, I've seen enough Bigfoot stuff to know this was tree knocks, and they use that as some form of communication. Sasquatch? Could this really be a Sasquatch, I'm thinking? Or is it some other hiker out there in the woods trying to mess with me? Well, I had not seen anyone else on the hiking trails all day long. I had been out there for a couple of hours, and I hadn't seen any evidence of any other hikers out there. I didn't hear any voices, nobody talking, nobody passed me up on the trail. And suddenly, I just had this feeling like, you're not welcome here. You need to leave. So I put my camera back in the bag, zipped it up, stood up, and started walking away. Now, I knew I was a little freaked out. Yes, I was a little afraid. I wasn't like crazy frightened, hightailing it running down the trail, no. But I was walking a little faster than I normally do, I can tell you that. But I got down the trail and kind of rounded a corner, and the forest came back to life. The birds suddenly started singing again, the crickets were chirping. The sound of the forest had just returned, it had come back to life. I got to the end of the trail, got down to my truck, and looked around. There was nobody else parked there. There were no other cars at that trailhead. It was just my truck. I went home and I plopped myself down on the couch. Took a deep breath. What the hell was that? What happened out there? And I'm still a little shaken by it. Sad thing is, I didn't get any pictures of the structures. Just the way everything happened. But I sat there and I thought about the intricacy of the weaving, and then it occurred to me it had to have either been a person that did that, and the only other alternative would have been that a Sasquatch did it. Because to do that kind of weaving and stuff, you have to have an opposable thumb to work all that in together. Did I just have an encounter with a Bigfoot? I don't know. To this day, I still don't. I had to know more. I needed some answers. And I, at this point, really began diving into Bigfoot research. Obsessively watching videos on YouTube. Some of them obviously hoaxes, most of them not. You know, the TV shows like Finding Bigfoot, Discovering Bigfoot, that sort of thing. It's all very interesting to me. But I'm still, at this point, on the fence about it. To me, Bigfoot was always a Pacific Northwest thing. I had not heard of them being here in the Northeast anywhere. So when I Googled Bigfoot in West Virginia, wow, I was amazed. Apparently, Bigfoot is alive and well and living in the Appalachian Mountains. The other thing that came up on that search was the West Virginia Bigfoot Museum, located in southern West Virginia. And I will say, if you get a chance, definitely take a visit out to that museum. It's really remarkable. The amount of footprint castings and hairs that they have, things that, the hairs were analyzed, actually, and came out to be a good chunk of chimpanzee, but officially labeled as unknown primate. Okay, there you have it. There it is. But that one encounter that I had absolutely changed my life in ways that I couldn't even begin to imagine at the time. Not only was I more aware of the existence of this creature, where I had just kind of passed it off and not really thought about it before, it set off a chain of events. And I was still, while I'm researching Bigfoot and all, I'm still doing other things. I'm getting in my truck and I'm driving around West Virginia, checking out this and checking out that, just really trying to learn as much about my new home state as I possibly could. Well, you know, that sort of thing, it gets kind of, I won't say boring, because I truly did enjoy every minute of it. But I started thinking it'd be more fun if I had somebody go with me on these things. I decided to put a profile on a dating site and see if I could meet somebody who would be interested in going and running around with me. So when I put up my profile inadvertently, and I hadn't even thought about it at the time, I was wearing a t-shirt that I bought at the Bigfoot Museum. Picture of Bigfoot on it, says, "Bigfoot saw me, but no one believes him." You know, I thought it was kind of cute. So I put that up on the profile. And it wasn't too long after that, I actually got a message. And the first thing that message said was, "Hey, couldn't help but notice you're wearing a Bigfoot t-shirt. Interested in Bigfoot? Let's talk about it." I answered her back. And we started talking. She started telling me about how she had lived in Washington State as a child, and that Bigfoot was really common in the area where she lived. And if you really want to know more about it, uh, go to the Kentucky Bigfoot Research Organization and Charlie Raymond's YouTube video. And Kathy actually did an interview with him that got posted on his YouTube channel, and it's a really fascinating story. You definitely might want to go look it up. So, we started talking and getting to know each other. Sorry, a little problem with my screen there. I got it. We started talking and getting to know each other. Text messages, FaceTime messages. Found out that even beyond Bigfoot, we had quite a bit in common. A lot in common. And so we decided to have our first face-to-face meeting, and we've been inseparable ever since. I mean, her love and passion for Bigfoot is totally unrivaled, and she's extremely knowledgeable on the subject. So she was actually the first, and up till now, the only person I ever really told that story to about my first encounter. And right away she wanted to go back there. I had not been back to that site since the day it happened. Not that I was fearful or afraid to. It was just winter set in, it was cold out, and life kind of got in the way doing this, that, and the other thing. Well, right away she wants to go out there, and I took her out there. It had been 6-8 months, something like that, since I had been out there. And the Forest Service had been in there. They'd been doing some logging on some trees, and sadly, those nests were no longer there. They were gone. But we did walk the trail. Went off trail a couple of times. Kathy pointed out some X structures that we saw. We saw some things that could have been tree structures. Bigfoot's known for building structures out of trees. I'll post some pictures of some of the things that we've seen. We decided to investigate a little more fully. We were both on the same page as far as watching the YouTube videos and documentaries and things like that, and being extremely interested in it. But the thought of actually going out and looking for evidence, well, that was a new thing for both of us. So we went and bought some supplies to aid in our research, and we have actually collected some footprint casts. We've got pictures of tree structures, X structures. We go camping quite often, and we leave audio out. And so it got to the point where I just kind of wanted to share our research a little bit more, and I set up an Instagram page of photos and evidence, and it just kind of took off from there. That's where the West Virginia BigFoot project was actually born. We wanted to work on a more public level, share our research with other researchers who are good enough to share their research with us. And we're still new at this. We're still learning as we go. We regularly attend Bigfoot festivals and conferences, and we get to meet up with the other researchers. The Bigfoot community is like one big family. We're all happy to share our research. We're all happy to share our evidence. And they're just really nice people, and I'm happy to be part of that community. And I will continue to do this. Because, you know, Kathy and I always joke about how Bigfoot actually brought us together. So that's my story, and I'm sticking with it.